Joining me on the phone, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Chad, I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Matt, thanks for joining us today. Taking a look, of course, at the Iowa caucuses. You've got Iowa tonight. All political eyes will be on Iowa. What are your predictions? What do you think is going to happen for the Republicans?
Yeah, I was asked to put my prediction newspaper up this morning, and I did. And so, obviously, the thing everyone's talking about is turnout, particularly whether the Trump first-time caucus goers was out. You had 121,900 people turn out 4 years ago. You could, my expectation is you're going to see a small bump from that, 10, maybe 20%. I'm predicting 140,000 turnout. At that level, Cruz is almost guaranteed to win, I think. He has a pretty strong base of 35 to 40,000 votes. And so that's my expectation is you are going to see that kind of turnout. Cruz is going to win. I have him at 30, with Trump at 25 and Rubio at 19. Now, the caveat is here that if turnout were to get to, let's say, 170,000 or above, Trump would almost surely win, probably by 3, 4, 5 points. So it's hard to know whether several tens of thousands of first-time caucus goers who've never voted before are going to turn out, show up at the right location at the right time. In many cases, they're going to have to register, which means they have to have their identification and a piece of mail from their home address that matches up with their identification. If tens of thousands of people are going to be able to do that, then that means that Trump's ground game is better than people expected. I just don't think it's that good. I don't think it's going to materialize. We haven't seen much evidence of it. So I am expecting Cruz to win by 5 points tonight. I could be wrong. It's been a really crazy year, but that's what my prediction is.
I had Eric Erickson on earlier today, and he was talking about Marco Rubio and the Rubio campaign, and it seems they have upped things in the last 2 weeks or so. I know yesterday they were holding, even on television, 30-minute buys of town hall forums on TV, and the Des Moines Register folks said, hey, don't be surprised if there's a big surprise out here. I mean, that's traditional Iowa. Do you buy into there being any chance that Marco Rubio shoots into second place?
I think it's unlikely. I just don't think he has the ground game. He has spent a lot of the last month in Iowa, but he hadn't spent much time there before then. So I think the one possibility is because he does have some momentum at the end, you could perhaps see folks that might have been planning on supporting Jeb Bush or Christie go to Rubio to try to give him a strong third or perhaps even second. But, I have him at 19 in my projection. That's pretty high. That'll be as high as he's been really in Iowa. And honestly, I think one of the narratives coming out of this, if he's 15 or above, is going to be Rubio rising and that he's a real threat now. So, the Rubio campaign, I think, has done a better job managing expectations in Iowa than the Cruz campaign has done. If Cruz loses Iowa by 2 or 3 points, that should be a great finish for him, given that he's been dealing with an onslaught for 3 weeks out there, from the governor, from the ethanol lobby, from Trump, from Rubio, from everybody, from Santorum and Huckabee. But, unfortunately, the expectations game, I think, has not been all that well managed by them to this point in Iowa. Now, look, they got 12,000 volunteers. They got, 800 people in these dorms. They're making 25,000 calls a day. Cruz is running the best on-the-ground campaign on the Republican side we've ever seen before. And I just think at the end of the day that is going to matter in Iowa, given how the caucuses work.
If Rubio finishes 19, let's go with your prediction of 30, 25, 19. How does that set up New Hampshire in your mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. First of all, I think you'll see Cruz rise. I think if he does win and he wins by a few points, you're going to see him rise everywhere. First of all, he's going to raise $3 to $5 million online the first couple of days. I think he's going to rise in New Hampshire. Look, right now, the polling in New Hampshire shows Trump way ahead.
Yeah.
But second place is muddled. I've seen second place where Cruz is ahead at 12 or 13. I've seen second place where Jeb or Rubio or Christie are there. So I think the four establishment candidates of Jeb, Christie, Rubio, and Kasich are all bunched up anywhere between 7 and 12. and Cruz has generally been at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So in that scenario, I think Rubio would rise in New Hampshire. I think Cruz would rise in New Hampshire. And the question then becomes, how do Trump supporters handle him not winning? How does the media handle Trump not winning? Do they turn on him? Does he still have a 25-1 earned media advantage? What happens in the next debate? I mean, these are all the kinds of questions that are going to come into play. The biggest question in New Hampshire is, does the establishment lane unite behind one candidate, and who is that candidate? And I think that's the biggest advantage Rubio has. If he finishes a strong third or perhaps even second place in Iowa, he makes the case that he needs to be the one candidate in New Hampshire that they need to unite behind.
If Trump wins Iowa and Trump wins New Hampshire, is there anything that stops him from becoming the Republican nominee, in your opinion?
I think he'll really be a freight train running down a hill at that point. Could you have all the other candidates basically unite to try to stop him and unite behind whoever the strongest remaining candidate is? I think that's a possibility. But if he's in that kind of position, you're going to start seeing the party unite behind him. You already see people in Washington think he's a more electable candidate than Cruz, which I think is insane. Part of this is going to depend on, how it plays out. If Trump wins the first two, he's then going to win South Carolina. If he wins South Carolina, he's going to win most of the southern states on March 1st. He's going to be in a very strong position going forward. On the other hand, if Cruz wins Iowa, let's say Trump wins New Hampshire, South Carolina, I think, presents an opportunity to settle that battle, that two-way battle between Trump and Cruz, and then you go into the southern states where Cruz takes Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia are states, and Tennessee are states where Cruz is very strong. I mean, to me, March 1st could be very significant if you have a two-way race between Trump and Cruz. So, again, the question coming out of Iowa is going to be, does Trump or Cruz win, and is Rubio still in the race? The question out of New Hampshire is going to be, is it a two-way race at that point, or is it a three-way race going into South Carolina and going into March 1st?
How does Rubio get into that three-way race?
I think he's got to finish a strong second in New Hampshire behind Trump, after hopefully finishing a strong third in Iowa. I think that's the best path for him. Look, they've talked a little bit about a 3-2-1 strategy: third in Iowa, second in New Hampshire, first in South Carolina. He's got to win somewhere. Right. No question. He's got to win somewhere, and South Carolina probably presents the best opportunity for him if he finishes third in Iowa and second in New Hampshire.
Let's take a look real quick at the Democrats. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. It's a pretty close race there, with Hillary at 43%, 45%. Bernie Sanders is 3 points behind her. What do you think happens there?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one. I probably think Hillary wins by a couple points tonight. I think she has a better organization on the ground. Bernie's support is college kids. They're hard to rely on. I think his support is definitely in the college towns. I don't think he has that much support in some of the rural areas. So you could actually see a situation where Hillary does better with delegates than she does in sort of raw vote, because her vote's going to be much more geographically spread out. Yeah, I do think Hillary wins by a couple points. That said, look, the enthusiasm for Bernie is similar to the enthusiasm for Trump. It's very similar. And so, you could see a scenario where he rises at the end and narrowly beats Hillary. I think Iowa's going to be very close, 2 points either way. My guess is Hillary wins, but I think it's going to be very close. Very
interesting. Matt, tell folks what they can find on BuzzStreetTexas.com today, and maybe what you're working on for the rest of the week as well.
Yeah, two things I'll point out. One, my Austin American Statesman column this morning is on the Supreme Court review of Obama's executive amnesty and on the long-term ramifications of that as it relates to the so-called take care clause. There's also a really interesting column in the San Antonio Express News by Peggy Feekak on the alliance between Abbott and Cruz in Texas, and it goes back to his days working as Solicitor General in Texas for then Attorney General Abbott. You can find those two stories plus all the news editorials and blog items from around the state at mustreadtexas.com.
All right. As always, Matt Mackowiak, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Have a great week. Take care.
You too. It's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.